Thank you, Mr. President. Today, after 4 years of reckless spending and decades-high inflation under the Biden-Harris administration, our national debt now sits at $36.4 trillion. In many ways, this number represents one of the biggest threats to our nation, as interest payments on the debt now eclipse our country's total defense spending. Think about that. The debt, interest on the debt, is costing the hardworking taxpayer more of their money. It's taking a greater share of their tax dollar than what we are spending to provide for the common defense. It is astounding that that is where we are. But this problem has gotten worse through the years. During the last few months of the Biden administration, October to December of last year, our country ran a deficit of more than $710 billion, up 39% from the same period in 2023. The American people know this is unsustainable. Among many other reasons, that is why the American people showed up in record numbers and gave a mandate to Donald J. Trump as President of the United States, winning the Electoral College and the popular vote. The American people know full well they are overtaxed. Government is overspent, and they are tired of it. And since Inauguration Day, the president has been hard at work on this issue, getting the economy under control. And one of the first things he did back in office was to establish the Department of Government Efficiency. It is being led by Elon Musk, and the agency is working to uncover and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government. And to no one's surprise, DOGE has found a lot of waste, especially with programs that should never have been put on the books in the first place. Now, in recent weeks, the agency working overtime to find ways to save money for the taxpayer. They found $33 million in Education Department grants to groups that push far-left ideas like critical race theory, and $44.6 million in canceled leases for unused office space, and $45 million in scholarships for students in Burma, $182 million in Department of Health and Human Services contracts that had nothing to do with health, nothing. They even found $168,000 for a museum exhibit for Anthony Fauci and $1 billion in DEI programs. Now, when you scoop all of that together, you have a pretty good savings for the U.S. taxpayer who has been funding all of this. Removing these programs and recouping those dollars, that is the right thing to do. In addition, DOGE has worked to reform the mismanaged U.S. Agency for International Development. We call this USAID. Under the last administration, the agency used its $40 billion budget to support left-wing and anti-American causes around the world, including terror-tied extremist groups in the Middle East. As DOGE uncovers the left's abuse of taxpayer dollars, Washington Democrats have tried desperately to paint the agency as unaccountable to the American people. But the exact opposite is true. DOGE, which reports directly to President Trump, is restoring government accountability by reining in the federal government and reining in the bureaucracy. By the way, they're unelected. That's why last week President Trump issued an executive order to support DOGE, directing federal departments to work with the agency to reduce the size of the federal workforce. A downsize is desperately needed. The government employs more than 2.4 million civilian employees at a cost of hundreds of billions of dollars each year. To support these efforts, I recently introduced a package of bills called the DOGE, which would hold the federal government accountable for managing taxpayer dollars. Now, all of these bills would help to drain the swamp. And these are bills that I have proposed over the last several years, but we've brought them together under the heading of the DOGE Acts. It would implement a hiring and salary freeze, direct agencies to reduce the size of their workforce by 5% within 3 years, and establish a commission to report to Congress on moving non-national security agencies outside of Washington, D.C. In addition, the legislation would create a pilot program to determine federal employees' compensation based on merit, not seniority, something that is so important to do because right now, the longer someone holds a job, the more they're going to make. Let's move that to how well they do their job and how well they perform in fulfilling the responsibilities that are given to them. And it would require agencies to reinstate their pre-COVID telework policies, a measure that is especially crucial after just 6% of federal employees worked in an office full-time during the Biden administration. Tennesseans go to work every day. They're working full-time in order to get a full-time paycheck. And they're astounded when they hear that under the last administration, the Biden administration, 6% of federal employees worked full-time, but you know what? They all got a full-time paycheck, courtesy of the hardworking U.S. taxpayer. Perhaps most importantly, the DOGE Acts would cut non-security discretionary spending by 5% by fiscal year 2028 and every following year, saving taxpayers billions of dollars. When it comes to government spending, Tennesseans and certainly Americans demand accountability. With DOGE, Republicans are delivering it. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the next portion of my remarks be placed separately into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. In one of his first acts back in office, President Trump defended our country's cherished principle of equal citizenship by ending birth tourism. For years, foreign tourists have abused our nation's birthright citizenship by visiting America with the sole purpose of having their children here. These tourists have no intention of staying here or of even raising their children in America. Instead, they return to their home country to rear their children who now have the benefit of American citizenship, but no ties or loyalty to our nation. This abuse of our citizenship is wrong, yet Democrat-aligned groups are trying to stop President Trump's order in the courts. When you look at the numbers, you realize how much is at stake with this executive order. According to one estimate, birth tourism results in 33,000 births to women on tourist visas each year. Think about that, 33,000. That's tens of thousands of people each year who claim American citizenship and all its benefits while having nothing at stake in the future of our country. To no one's surprise, birth tourism has spawned a multi-million-dollar industry, and it is rife with fraud and criminal activity. In China, traffickers charge clients tens of thousands of dollars to coach them on lying to Customs and Border Protection, obtaining a visa, and reaching our country. In fact, the problem has gotten so bad that airlines in Asia are turning away pregnant passengers to America over birth tourism concerns. This cannot go on, which is why I fully support President Trump's efforts to bring this terrible practice to an end. I yield the floor.